Hi, my name is Steve Rahi. I am a premier field engineer specializing in systems intertechnologies. Today's discussion is part 19 of an ongoing series talking about operating system deployment in Configuration Manager 2012. So today's discussion is specifically going to focus on the topic of DaRT, desktop and recovery toolkit. So this won't probably be that long of a discussion, maybe about 30 minutes or so. But this is a unique enough topic, and to me, interesting enough that I wanted to give it its own section to focus on, and so we'll do that. So here's the agenda that I kind of want to walk through. So the first part of this is really not about OSD at all. It's more or less introducing you to what DaRT is. So what is it? Why use it? Why use it with OSD? How do we install it? Get it? What's it look like when it's installed? And so on, right? You see the agenda. We'll turn to OSD near the end. So let's just get started. So what really is DaRT? So again, DaRT, the acronym stands for Deployment and Recovery Toolkit. It is a component of MDOP. So lots of acronyms here. MDOP, Microsoft Deployment Optimization Pack. So MDOP is really a collection, if you will, of tools. So DaRT is one of them, right? And it's specifically geared for troubleshooting and helping you recover from scenarios that are challenging, right? So DaRT specifically can really works to try to help reduce technician time supporting remote system. There's some remote options in here. In fact, jumping ahead to the bulleted list of tools that we have inside DaRT. Also, we kind of call DaRT the Windows Recovery Environment, WinRE, so you might have run across that. Really kind of the same thing. And similar things. So they are often referred to similar, at least I do. So, but one of the tools on the bottom right is the remote connection. And so remote connection allows you to do a lot of troubleshooting remotely, reduce the number of actual in-person visits to a problem scenario and so on, right? So these tools will actually help even if a system can't boot to the installed OS. We can get in, try to do some repairs, certainly recover data, and so on, right? So for OEM manufactured PCs, you very likely will have the Windows RE, the DaRT image, the recovery environment image placed on the disk, and it will be default, meaning all of these tools will be enabled. Fully possible to create a customized version of the Windows recovery environment. I call it Windows PE on purpose because really it is. It's just PE with a few tools, added some customizations. Very possible to create a customized version of this and deploy it yourself. So if you want to offer the recovery environment option, but there's certain things about it you want to make sure exist that are not part of the default, very possible, right? Just a matter of customizing your own version and deploying it. And I'll show you how to do that. The deployment thought, though, kind of brings to mind what are the deployment options for using with WinRE or the DaRT image that you create. And there are a few. First, if you have a PC that has the recovery image on it already, there are ways that we can actually go replace your default WinRE image or DaRT image with a customized version. Certainly that would take a little bit of work, and some automation could help. Task sequencing could help in that as well. But if you don't have systems with that recovery partition, if your practice has been to just blow away all the partitions, which we do with OSD by default, and then create those partitions again, and you did not make room for the recovery environment, you can still use the recovery tools. One option might be just putting them on your Pixie server and allowing Pixie boot as one of the options to use WinRE, right? The DaRT image. Another option could be putting the image on removable media like a USB drive or something like that technicians can carry around and use to boot. It's not a big image really at all. It's just Windows PE. It's small, but there are customizations to it, and you can put it on whatever USB stick, probably any of them you can get today, and have technicians carry that around as an extra tool. Having a restore CD, certainly that's an option too. And then the one that we are going to talk about specifically is baking in the custom process of loading your custom WinRE DaRT image during the imaging process. That's certainly an option as well. So why do we use DaRT? We've covered some of these already, probably most of them. Remote capabilities, the ability to facilitate troubleshooting scenarios and do them remotely. We'll actually show one of those as we get to our last demo. A customized user experience. So basically, if there are tools that you want the user to be able to leverage, then you can create a customized image, deploy it, allow the users to have that option when they're trying to recover their own machines. If we want to have a technician that connects remotely, then none of the tools will be disabled in that scenario. So even if you turn them off for a local boot by the user, whenever connections come in remotely, all the tools are available. So complete flexibility there. If you're going to create a custom experience, probably no surprise here, you're going to have to create a custom Windows recovery environment WinRE image and deploy it using one of the methods that I mentioned previously. Right. Last thing, remote PC diagnostics and recovery. Again, talked about this, but if the point here that I called out, if you don't have a bootable OS, you can still use these tools to get inside the OS and recover data and store things off and so on. So what about DaRT with OSD? Why do we care? Well, there's two reasons. One we've already mentioned. One is imaging DaRT onto systems so that when they're first built, they have your customized version of DaRT, aka WinRE, on them for use. The other, which is really useful and uses the DaRT environment but doesn't require the WinRE image and all of that kind of thing, is create an experience where you can remotely view inside of Windows PE. So if you're imaging systems in the field or technicians need help, they can reach out to you, or you can even do it without a technician there and watch what's going on in the Windows PE environment and troubleshoot. That's something that PE doesn't allow you to do natively in OSD, but it's a really cool capability. Not that hard to set up. That'll be the last demo we do. All right, so how do we go about installing DaRT, right? So we've mentioned already that it's part of MDOP, so we're going to have to download the required MDOP version. So like the ADKs, there are versions of MDOP that kind of parallel the versions of the OS. I have downloaded Windows 8.1 latest version, if you will, of the latest version of MDOP, which has in it the DaRT tools I need for the OSs that I care about, right? So we'll download MDOP, we'll install DaRT, which is a component of MDOP, and then there's some things we'll explore. So let me do that real quick. So I'm going to pull in my lab. So here I've already downloaded MDOP, so I'm just going to open it up, and you'll see there's a number of tools here, right? DaRT is just one of them. So if I go in here, you see I have 3 versions of DaRT all the way back to the Windows 7 equivalent. And if I just go in here, look at installers, English, US, here, x64, it's just an MSI. So I run the MSI, we get installed, or DaRT gets installed, and I'm ready to go, right? So specifically, what does it look like after it's installed? If we go into the program files folder, we see Microsoft DaRT. Why do I tell you this? Because there are a couple of things that I will care about, and you will care about in the last demo. So the tools.cab, there are files in here that you will need to lift out and use in a customized Windows PE image to facilitate remote control. I show these to you here to show where I'm getting them, and whenever I get to that demo, I will reference back to these tools. All right, so let's pull this back out for a moment. All right, so in order to do any kind of customization with your WinRE image, with your DaRT image, we need to go through and create that customized experience. It's not hard to do at all. DaRT includes an image creator, if you will. Once we have that image created, it has to be deployed to the systems. That's where we talked about the deployment options just a minute ago, right? We'll demonstrate this in a second, showing you how to do it with OSD. So let me pull this back in, and let's talk through creating the DaRT image. So if I go to my start menu, type in DaRT, then I will come up with DaRT recovery image wizard. And this is really easy, so I'll step through this. In fact, yeah. So I'll step through this. I'm going to create a 64-bit DaRT image. Here's the path to my installation media. So this is the DVD. So I've essentially booted that, and so we have that on the D drive, just to verify. So here it is on the D drive. So that is the ISO that I've mounted. So click next. So these are all the components that I can enable. If you don't want something enabled, maybe you don't want computer management, maybe you don't want the hotfix uninstall, whatever, then you can turn them off. You can turn them on. Whatever state you want, that's the state they will be in whenever we create this WIM. Now, again, notice I'm turning them off for the local user experience. If I connect in remotely, all of them will be available. I've not actually tried that. That's what I've read, so I assume it's true, but test yourself. So I'll choose what I want, click next. Choose whether or not to allow remote connections. Totally up to you. This is very, very useful, as you'll see in a minute, so I would always turn that on. You can specify port if you want to, something to pop up text-wise if you want to. What other things you want to bake into this recovery environment image? What drivers do you want to have available and loaded for use? What components of PE do you want available? Are you going to run any scripts, that kind of thing? Any crash analyzer type things, Windows Defender options, and so on. I'm going to create the image. I have a few options. This is where it's going to go by default. I can create just the WIM. I can create the ISO if I want to create the bootable media, the USB stick, the DVD, whatever. And then I can actually create the PowerShell script, which will show me, give me the PowerShell script that's used to actually create this. If I want to edit the image after it's done, then we can do that. We can mount the image that we create, allow you to edit it, and then when you're done editing, actually go create it. So I'll actually turn that off, but I'll go create. So you see that we're going to start creating here. Take not very long. While we're doing that, let me show you something. So I found this on CodePlex, really, and it's a neat little tool. So whenever we're working with images and customizing WIM files and so on, it's a common practice maybe to use DISM. That's certainly what we use behind the scenes in OSD. DISM works great. The command lines are not difficult, but sometimes the command lines can be fairly long. This is a GUI-based tool that allows you to work with DISM and do all the things that you might want to do and so on with it, right? So I show it to you. It's on CodePlex. You can grab it. Works really well and is a GUI shortcut, whatever, right? So pretty cool thing. I won't actually open up the WinRE image as we're building it, but I can show you here, DaRT 8.1, we're actually building the WinRE image. Be a little bit slow to pop up right now because it's creating it still. But here is the boot.wim that is getting created. Now, a little interesting note here. This tool creates a boot.wim, but what you want is actually the WinRE.wim. The boot.wim here is the WinRE WIM. That's what you're going to get, right? But the challenge here is you're going to have to rename it to boot.wim. So here we're created, so I can cancel it. So you're going to have to rename it from boot.wim to WinRE.wim. If you don't do this, then the script that I'm going to show you in just a minute will fail, or the task sequence that I'm going to show you in just a minute will fail. Has to be called WinRE.wim. I'll point back to why that's the case in a minute, right? And certainly play with this yourself and create the image the way you like, but hopefully you get the idea. Not a hard experience to do. All right, so that said, we've got hopefully a basic understanding now of what DaRT is. We've understand the creation process, how to go through creating your WIM. The question now is, how do we actually use OSD to deliver that customized DaRT WIM onto the systems you're going to image, right? So understand that there are no built-in options inside OSD to drop an WinRE WIM on the drive and have it use it and stage it and all of that. It's a fully customized scenario of what I'm going to do here. There's multiple paths you can use to actually get here. So what I'm going to show is just one approach. Ultimately, the processes, however you would do it, are going to be similar. Just maybe the implementation details vary a bit. So again, example given, one of many. The reason that I used it, frankly, is because I found this blog that was really good in explaining how to do it, and so I just kind of decided to set that up. So credit to the blog and what was written, so you can walk through it yourself using that, right? All right, so let's actually walk through task sequence configuration, and then we'll see the results of it. So let me go back into my lab, and here let me pull up the ConfigMgr console. Yeah, there we go, ConfigMgr console. And there's just a couple of pieces that I need to have. So first, let's expand this. Let's just look at the task sequence that will help guide us to what we're actually doing. So if I open up operating system deployment, go to task sequences, then you'll see that here is my task sequence to enable deploying DaRT. So the first thing is I've got a format and partition step, pretty normal thing. Here, instead of just using 100% for the OS, I'm creating a 1 gigabyte partition for WinRE. Probably bigger than I need. It was convenient, so I used it, right? That's it. I've got to have a place for staging the WinRE boot WIM and so on. After that, I need to basically go through a process to make that WIM available, and then turn off the default settings of the OS, replace the WinRE with my WinRE, and then turn it back on, right? So here's, all of this is normal up until here. So here's where I do the DaRT setup. So I'm going to make a recovery directory. Oh, by the way, you see where I have this formatted. I'm storing the partition information, the pointer to it anyway, in a variable. So I'm going to use that here. So I'm going to basically make a directory on the recovery partition called recovery. I'm going to copy my DaRT WinRE into that recovery partition using xcopy. Notice that I'm running an image package, a DaRT image package. What's in that DaRT image package? Well, here's the source directory for it here. So DaRT recovery image, this is the source directory. It's just the WinRE.wim. This is that boot WIM that I created with the generator and then renamed to WinRE.wim. Okay, so I'll minimize that for a minute. Now that I have all of that staged and on the local hard drive, now I'm going to go, and, oh, by the way, notice this, dot \asterisk. That means copy everything from the local directory and put it here. What's the local directory? It's this package directory, because I've specified the package, right? So once I have it copied, I need to disable WinRE and then set a new location for WinRE, and notice I'm pointing it to the recovery partition. Now, one thing about this is where I kind of stuck for a minute, because initially that WIM I copied over was just boot.wim. I just copied it. This command will not recognize that as a valid image for this use. So if you rename it to WinRE.wim, then it recognizes it, and it's not a problem, right? So now we're going to basically set, hey, this is the path that we want to use for our recovery agent, and once we specify that, we just enable DaRT again. Or Windows Recovery again. Pretty simple. So I've actually got this deployed to a collection, all unknown. I've imaged a machine. So let me pull that in real quick. I've actually going to show you after imaging is complete, because since this is post the OS actually getting deployed, it would take a little bit to show it to you all the way through. So I'll just start this up. This is going to come up in Windows 8.1. And then I will force it to reboot into the recovery mode, and we'll just see. All of my tools here are disabled. And I'm not going to spend much time here, just to show you that we do actually come up in the recovery environment. I do not want enhanced mode. I want that off. Okay. Okay. So once I'm in, I'm just going to go to PC settings. Here's a couple of ways you could do this. You could boot with an F8 command prompt, I believe, whatever. Update and recovery. Yeah. And recovery, restart now. I'm going to choose what I want here in just a second. And you're going to see just the default recovery options right now. after I make a couple of clicks, and it'll reboot again, and you'll see DaRT come up. Come on. Okay, so we are here. Now we came up into that environment. I'm going to choose that I want to troubleshoot, and I'm going to use advanced options here. Notice that there is no DaRT, but what I want to do is do some startup repair. So I'm going to reboot into it. Again, I'm not going to choose the CD, but it's just going to boot directly into the recovery environment, preparing automatic repair. You might have seen this on your PC a time or two. Mine just every now and then boots into the recovery environment, even though nothing seems to be wrong. I just have to reboot it again. So no, I don't care about network connectivity. In this case, I'm going to have to log in. Okay, and then once I'm in, we're going to try to go through the diagnosis. We'll pull up a window with some tools available for use here, and one of them now will be WinRE. So couldn't repair the PC on its own. I'm going to go to advanced options, no big deal. And in here I have troubleshoot, and now look what I have. Diagnostics and recovery toolset. These are all the tools that I told you about and showed you were here. All of them are disabled. No big deal. So I disabled them all so you would know that it's a custom image and so on. So essentially that's it, right? Exciting demo here, but at least you can see that that task sequence did create that for me. All right, so moving on. What about DaRT and Windows PE? So what are the advantages of using the components of DaRT to actually inject into Windows PE? Well, the beauty there, and this to me is kind of cool, last demo we'll wrap up after this, being able to view remotely into the PE imaging phase is cool. Cool for a couple of reasons. Better support for your remote imaging scenarios, technicians on the ground, so on. This can be completely automated, meaning that when a system begins and starts through the PE phase, it will automatically create a file, if you will, that you can click on to get the remote session started on the box. So you don't have to do it remotely. I have done it remotely. Again, using this blog below, has a really good walkthrough. It's 8.0 focused, DaRT 8.0. There are some very minor differences between 7 and 8.1. I'm using 8.1, right? But this is a really good write-up, so credit back to the blog author, and feel free to use it, obviously, to walk through your own scenario. It'll help you get it up and running. So can be automated, doesn't have to be. If you want the technician to basically call in for help and give you the information you can connect to, that's cool too. Mine is automated. The other, which is important to me kind of as a support guy, is that this will enable sharing the PE phase with remote resources such as me. One of the challenging things is whenever working with troubleshooting scenarios and customers are having challenges in the PE phase, especially if it's on physical hardware, I can't see it. And I'm kind of having to lead just visually in my mind through what I think they're seeing. But if I can connect in and share that experience, even though it's on physical hardware, it makes life a little bit easier for troubleshooting, right? So this, again, mentioned it before, this is binary specific to the version of the OS you're wanting to run. In this case, specific to the version of PE that you're wanting to run. So if you're running a Windows 8.1 based PE to deliver a Windows 7 image, the binaries need to match the Windows 8.1 version of PE, right? Because that's where we're going to use it. Obviously, goes without saying that we will have to, I think it goes without saying that we'll have to create a custom boot image with all of these binaries injected in order for it to work. So all of that said, let's actually look at it and walk through what it looks like to have this configured. So back to my lab, pull it back in. All right, so here I've actually created a directory of files that I will need to reference. So here's my here's my custom DaRT boot image, first of all. So you'll see that I've customized a boot image in a minute. There it is. Here is my directory list that I'm going to use as a pre-start command inside Windows PE. Now here's the pre-start command. I'll come back to that in a minute. This is the key, right? You need a directory structure that is like this, and here's where the key files are located. So these are the binaries that I got out of the toolkit cab on the DaRT install, right? With the exception of this utility, right? And then there's also this one. So these are not strictly needed. The reason I used these is because it's going to allow me through the boot process in PE to automatically start the remote viewer or the viewer in DaRT. And actually that'll start by itself, but then what this allows me to do is create an entry on a remote share that is tied specifically to the remote session I'm doing. So if I want to create in remotely, I don't have to ask the technician to give me anything. I just click on that file. Maybe I have to ask them what the IP is so I can define that file. That'll make sense in a minute, right? So, but that's all described in the blog. All of this is described in the blog. It's actually a very useful thing. So once I have this structure, and this structure is what I'm going to bake into PE, the pre-start command is actually going to run this. What does this do? It's very simple, 2 lines. It basically takes this folder structure and copies it to the root of the PE RAM drive X. And then what it does is it runs this script to create a shortcut out on my site server, in this case, in a folder called DaRT Remote, in a share called DaRT Remote. And that will actually be a shortcut file that corresponds to the IP address of the system being imaged. And that's it, right? It might take a little bit of testing to actually get it right, but let me show you what it looks like here. I've actually got my custom boot image that I will use. So if I look at properties, I've specified this pre-start command, right? And I've specified this directory as the root. If you take it down another level, it's not going to work, right? You need the entire substructure underneath here to be copied by the script, and that is what we do. So we'll start at the most specific level that we can get to, and that's here, right? If we take it down any further, we won't have the structure, again, that we need. But since it's here, all I need to do then is call for that boot image whenever I am working with the task sequence, right? And actually boot with this boot image. So I could do that with Pixie. Here I just created boot media, and I'm going to use that. So here, yeah, I've just gone through the wizard, the boot media wizard, and so on, and specified this is my boot image. So now let's actually watch this work. So if I pull in this VM, bare metal again, look at settings, I can see that I'm using my DaRT-based boot media ISO, right? So I'm just going to start this. Let it boot. I'm going to choose to boot from the DVD. Go through standard PE stuff. Should look very, very familiar. And the first thing we're going to do is get the normal boot screen. No customized script has run yet at all. When we talked about the pre-start command in previous sessions, you'll know that the pre-start command runs immediately after I click next. You see that, again, there's no remote viewer at all. Actually, let me, before I click next, let me go back to my lab and pull this down, minimize it. All right. And pull open my shared directory. So my shared directory has nothing in it right now. And let me go back now and pull up my bare metal machine, and we'll wait side by side. So whenever I click next, we're going to see all the pre-start work run. So we loaded those, copied those files there, we ran through the script, and now we have this file created, right? So this is just, again, very shortcut thing. If I go back here, you'll notice down at the bottom, I've got remote viewer running. If I choose to restore it, you'll see that we are waiting for an incoming connection. The IP information and the port is really what we need. All of that is already specified in this file. It's a shortcut. So if I just double click on this, I am now remotely connected to my WinPE session. I can run it just like I would run any PE session, start things up, go image, use the F8 command prompt, no problem. Once I'm done, things are hunking along, I can go ahead and close this out, all good. Go back to my WinPE session, and it is still running. All right, so ready to start, off we go. No disruption at all. Very, very easy to set up. A lot of advantages to actually doing it. All right, so that said, I'm going to get this out of the environment because I don't need it anymore, and go ahead and delete this so I don't have it around anymore. There was a point made as I was talking about this in another setting that there would probably need to be a scenario where routinely you would go and clean out those shortcut files. That's probably true. So as part of the task sequence, once you leave PE, you could actually build in a tiny script that would go and get rid of the shortcut information for the specific machine because you're now out of the PE phase successfully. Right? So how you handle that, up to you. But that's kind of a cool demo, at least to me. So that wraps up what I wanted to talk about with DaRT. Again, I said 30 minutes at the outset. I'm probably going to be right around 32 by the time I quit talking. But hopefully a little bit better understanding of what DaRT is, how you can leverage it, and the benefits that it can bring. So we will wrap this session. We will see you for part 20. Talk to you then.